Hello everybody, in this video I will be showing you how I painted my Ork Meganobz and the Big Mek. The video will be mainly around the Big Mek. In some cases I'll show the Meganobz. I start off with a base coat of Chaos Black through a rattle can, and then, once that's dry, I use burnt umber through the airbrush and I coat the entire model with it. This is then followed by a coat of Vallejo chipping medium. Don't apply this too thick, and I'll put a link down in the description on how to correctly use chipping medium. Next I paint the entire model black. And then focusing on the armor panels and the blue parts, I paint night blue through the airbrush on all the armor parts. This is then followed by a zenithal highlight of magic blue, meaning I come from the top of the model down and I place the highlights where I see fit, where they should be. Once that's fully dry, I use just water, and I soak the model in water actually. After a couple of seconds, the water will activate the chipping medium, and using a hard brush, I start chipping the model. I then make a mixture of 1 part magic blue and 1 part dead white, and I apply an edge highlight over the entire model. As for the chips, I highlight these on the bottom of the chips to give a good contrast. Next, using black metal, I block in all the metallic parts on the model. This is then followed by a wash of non-oil, and I just go over all the metallic parts. If you accidentally hit a little bit of the blue, that's not going to be a big deal for the end result. Next, using gunmetal, I dry brush the larger parts of the metallics. For the smaller parts, using a small brush, I just carefully highlight them. In a lighter fashion, I repeat this process using silver, and now I purely focus on the outsides of the metallic parts and the most upper and visible parts of it. Next I start working on the white parts, and I start off by blocking all the parts that I want to be white for the Deathskullz using cold gray. On the checkered pattern on the shoulders, I just decided to go with white on the entire part first, just for the ease of it. Then using pale blue gray, I build up an initial rough highlight. You don't need to be super precise with this. I just try and leave a little bit of the cold gray in the most deepest recesses visible. Then using Airbrush Earthshade, I go and look for the cracks and damaged parts on the white panels, and I put a little bit of the Earthshade in those cracks. Then using non-oil, I'll pin wash all the white armor panels. Next, I made a mixture of 2 parts pale blue gray and 4 parts white, and I started building up the white color. I do this by painting from the inside towards the outside, creating more contrast. Next, I make a mixture of 6 parts white and 1 part pale blue gray, and I repeat this process. In all of these steps, I make sure I leave a little bit of the previous layer visible to create some sort of a transition from dark to light. And to finish the parts off, I edge highlight them with pure white. With the white finished, I now moved on to the black armor parts. There's not that many, but I wanted to do them before the rust. So I start off using black and I just block all those parts in. And also the checkerboard pattern, I paint the pieces that I want black with black. Then I roughly highlight these parts using anthracite gray. Again, you don't need to be super precise with this. Just make sure the color is on there and it's like a little bit visible. Then I make a mixture of 3 parts anthracite gray and 1 part white. And now I start building up an edge highlight. Next, I add 2 parts white to the mixture and I repeat the process, but this time I keep the line a bit thinner so that the previous line is showing a little bit and this new line is showing as well. Once that's all fully dry, I go and make a wash using AK Interactive Rust Treats and White Spirit. You can use any type of White Spirit. I use the AK Interactive one. And I mix the wash into the spirit until I have the consistency that I wanted. And then I just wash the entire model with it. Do this in a well ventilated room or outside. It will grant you a terrible headache if you sit in the vapors for too long. Leave it to dry for around a day and then you can continue painting. So I started working on the skin. I made a mixture of 2 parts yellow olive and 1 part camouflage green, and I blocked in all the skin. Next I added 2 parts camouflage green and I applied a rough highlight over all the skin. Again working from the recesses towards the light. And on this first highlight, not so much focusing on getting the colors exactly right. Now I use Antonian camo shade and I wash all the skin. Once that's dry, I make a mixture of 1 part yellow olive and 2 parts camouflage green. And I'm going to start and build up the green highlights on the skin. Next I add 1 part dead flesh to this mixture. And I reinforce the previous highlight. Where possible I make sure I leave a little bit of the previous layer visible to once again create the transition we're looking for. And by adding another part of dead flesh, I repeat this process by strengthening up the color on the most brightest and most visible parts. I then made a mixture of 1 part charred brown and 1 part earth, and I blocked in the leather or the pants of the model with this. And once that layer is dry, I give it a wash using Airbrush earth shade. It's a bit tedious painting this way, but the rust wash is pretty uncontrollable, so if you want to use that, you just need to do that first and then paint in all other parts. I then make a mixture of 1 part charred brown and 1 part earth again, and now I just basically patch up mistakes that the wash left behind. I'm getting the same color as before back with the shaded effect from the wash. And then by adding 1 part earth to the mixture, I start building this this color up and highlighting it a bit. I make sure I leave the recesses untouched and build up the color towards the light, because the pants are in an actual pretty dark area. You don't need to go very bright with them, so I finish them off using a coat of pure earth. Again, just strengthening and reinforcing the previous layer. Next it's onto the golden parts on the model, and I start off by using a mixture of 2 parts old copper and 1 part Victorian brass, and I block all these parts in. This is then followed by a wash of Airbrush earth shade. And once that's dry, using pure Victorian brass, I apply a highlight to all the golden parts. I stay away from the deepest recesses and also the area surrounding that, so that there is going to be a nice transition in the color, and there will be a little bit of a shine on the upper parts and the edges. Now, to reinforce this effect using silver, I place an edge highlight on the golden parts. And once that's dry, I use Seraphim Sepia and I wash the gold with it. And I mainly focus on getting the silver a bit toned towards a gold-like tone. The sepia doesn't have all that much effect on the rest of the gold. And then I was on to painting the wires on the model, and I decided I just wanted 2 colors. So I started off with making a mixture of 1 part dark flesh tone and 2 parts gory red, and I blocked in the part of all the wires running on the model. You can pick any wire you want, basically. I just chose these randomly. This is then followed by a coat of pure gory red, and I paint this in a highlighting way, so I stay away from the bottom side of the wires, and the bottom side is the side not towards the light, and just paint the entire thing over again, just not on the bottom. Next, I make a mixture of 1 part gory red and 1 part bloody red, and now I'm going to build up a highlight on the most upper parts of the wire. So now some parts on the top side of the model will not get touched anymore, and in this way we carefully start building up a transition. And to finish it off, a coat of pure bloody red just on the highest parts and the most visible parts, to get the complete color transition that I was looking for. So as for the rest of the wires, I decided a nice gray would be good enough. So I started off with blocking them in with anthracite gray. If this would have been a yellow or a green or, well, whatever, in my opinion there would have been way too much color. Once the anthracite gray is applied, I wash all those gray wires using non-oil. Once the non-oil is dry, in the same manner as the red wires, I paint a rough initial highlight using anthracite gray again. Meaning I just stay away from the bottom and the deepest recesses I just created with the non-oil. In a 3-to-1 mixture, 3 parts anthracite gray and 1 part white, I now apply a first highlight, or not a first, but a second highlight, and again towards the light, leaving the darker parts on the model untouched. And for the final highlight on these wires, I add 2 parts white to the mixture, and on the most visible parts, once again, I apply this highlight. Now on the back of the model there's 2 ribbed tubes, and I wanted to do those in a different color. So I blocked those in using cold gray. And then in a dry brushing sort of manner, I just make sure there's some pale blue gray on top of that, leaving a little bit of the cold gray visible. And then I repeat this using that white. And I make sure all colors are slightly visible in a transitional way. And then I wash it carefully using Beal Tan Green. Be careful if you do this to not let this pool in the surrounding areas, or basically anywhere. Just wanted to sit in the little recesses on the ribbed wire. Next, using earth, I block in all the bone parts on the model, including the teeth, and in case it has the nails. Only the crot had nails, so. And then using khaki, I paint all the ropes. Then using Airbrush Earthshade, I wash all those parts I just painted, so the earth and the khaki parts, to create some shading on those areas. Whilst that's drying, using white, I painted in the lens, just on the model. I wanted to say lens, but there's obviously more models or more lenses to paint. And once that's dry, I paint over with light red. This paint is pretty thin and normally it doesn't stick on anything except white. So once that's dry, I do a little dot of white in the middle of the lens. Onto painting the bone parts, the teeth, the nails. I start off with highlighting it with pure earth and leaving the deepest recesses untouched. I'm just going to build up this color from the dark brown tone that the Airbrush Earthshade has created. Once that has been applied, making a mixture of 1 part earth and 1 part bone white, and start building up the bone color on all those parts. Next, using pure bone white, I again reinforce these highlights and build them up furthermore, even further. Again, making sure leaving the previous tones a little bit visible so that you get the transition you're looking for. And to finish the bone parts off, I make a mixture of 1 part bone white and 1 part dead white, and I repeat the previous layer basically. However, again, where I get the chance, I'll leave a little bit of the bone visible. That leaves the ropes, and they just get a highlight of khaki, and that's it. So next it was back to the airbrush for the orbs on the backpack of the Mac, and I sprayed them using white. And basically, what I'm going to do is the same thing as with the lenses, but now through the airbrush. So I now paint them over using light red. Same colors can have a little bit of a different appearance when used through an airbrush or using a regular paintbrush. So once the light red's dry, I go back to the white, and I stay on the most outer side of the orbs, so on the top or on the left or the right, just the most sticking out part of the orb. So after I painted the base and I gave the model a dull coat, I used lavender yellow and I put this on the lenses on the models. And as for the orbs that I didn't do yet, I use Tamiya Clear Yellow. I give a good coat of it on those parts. This will stay really shiny, so therefore I apply the dull coat before I do this. And as you can see by now, I attach the head plate as well to the model. And this basically finished the model off. I applied some Forge World Light Rust weathering powder to the base and the bottom side of the model. And I applied some tufts, and here's the end result. So I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching, and please like, share and subscribe if you want to. If you don't like the video or something's wrong with the video, please let me know and I'll try and improve on that. So again, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.